Hey all, I am Paul Borosky, the owner of Quality Business Plan, and what I'd like to do today is introduce you all to my traditional business plan. Specifically, what we're going to do is I'm first going to go ahead and give you all a broad overview of what's included in my traditional business plan or intermediate plan. I use those terms interchangeably, not to confuse, but it was the intermediate plan, and now I've switched the name to traditional plan because most of my clients are going to select this, and this is a traditional business plan in my most humble of opinions. So anywho, the way this video is going to work out is I'm going to give you all a broad overview of what's included in the traditional business plan, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you all how I write my business plan, or give you an idea of how I write my traditional business plan. I do start with a traditional business plan template or structure, and then I'm going to show you how I customize that template or structure to have a completed business plan for a traditional business plan. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and zip through this little handy dandy PowerPoint tutorial or presentation I've got aligned for y'all. So first and foremost, traditional business plan content was included in the traditional business plan. You can expect 30 to 40 pages. You do get 2 revisions within 30 days of me emailing you the initial business plan completed. No refunds. Once you do your deposit, you make your final payment, you sign your disclosures, all that wonderful stuff. Once you do all the things I ask you to do, by golly, you are going to be getting a business plan. Typically, my traditional business plans take about 7 business days to turn around. It might be a little bit longer, it might be a little bit shorter, depending on the time of year, but depending on how busy I am, and so on and so forth, but I'll set your expectations accordingly. This business plan right here, it is good for about 30 employees. This is good for restaurants, it's good for small businesses. However, if you are a huge conglomerate, this traditional business plan is not going to meet your needs. We'll have to have a different discussion. It does include some charts and graphs, and this business plan, like I said, it does start with a template, but I do customize it moderately. I do put your information in there. So it is a proprietary template I start with, and that is customized. You do get a confidentiality disclaimer, executive summary, company description. One of the biggest changes or additions that I have to the traditional business plan as compared to my express plans is going to be these SWOT analysis and a whole lot more financial information. So you're going to get a SWOT analysis, industry research. I'm also going to be giving you some more information, industry research as well. So for my express plans, it does go with just the basic industry, but I go into some products and services segmentation based on IBS World's information. You're going to get an organizational chart and management description. I also do include a resume. If you send it to me, I will put it in there as long as it's in the Word doc. Marketing and sales, pretty straightforward. And then financial projections, I do take the gloves off. Once we start hitting the traditional business plans, I take the gloves off for the financial projections. A lot of business plan writers, MBAs, what they're going to do is they're going to just dive right into the financial projections. They're going to give you the 24-month pro forma profit and loss. They're going to give you the income statement, and they're going to give you the balance sheet, and they're going to expect y'all or the reader to understand what the heck's going on. That is not the case what we do here. What I do with my financial projections for the traditional business plan is I'm going to give them a page and a half of assumptions. It's going to include some financial highlights as to what's to expect from the financial projections. I then dive into starting daily revenues, starting labor costs, starting fixed costs, some growth rates. Once we have that foundation set, then I'm going to walk them into the 24-month profit and loss. Then I'm going to hit them with the pro forma income statement and the balance sheet. Then we're going to go dive even deeper, and we're going to go into the break-even analysis, the projected valuation, and then even some financial ratio. So we're really going to get down and dirty here with the financial projections once we start into the traditional business plan. And soon, what I'm also going to be doing is I'm going to be putting some tutorials out there on how y'all can understand and explain the financial projections, because this is a lot of information. It sounds like 12 to 18 pages. It's not a lot. When you're trying to learn Latin or German or whatever kind of foreign language you want to learn, it's brand spanking new. It's going to take some explanation. So very shortly, I am going to be releasing some videos on how y'all can understand my financial projections and how you can explain that to the end user, whether it be an investor, whether it be employees, or a lending institution. And trust me, bankers, they do need explanations. All right. And then finally, it's also going to have a funding request. All right. With that said, Let's dive into this little comparison here. So to the left, we have our of my business plan template. I've designed this business plan template over about 12 years. I got MBA back in 2010, and since that time I've been writing business plans. And from that, I've concocted this little template that I use for my my traditional business plans. And to the right is going to be a finished example. So with my traditional business plans, you're going to get a title page, put your company name right here, and then a logo. If you got it, I'll use it. Just give it to me. Right here, I'm going to go ahead and I can put the date right here, or it might say Paul Borosky, Quality Business Plan by Paul Borosky. So it'll have something like this right here. Control copy it, Control V it. There we go. So we'll have something like, it'll look something like that right there. Next is going to be your table of contents. I'm going to have the table of contents right here. All this information will be included in your traditional business plan. Next page is going to be the confidentiality and disclaimer statement. This I do not customize. This is just a generic form that I put in the front of some of my business plans, just to let the reader know that they can't take your thoughts and ideas. Please feel free to customize this or have your attorney look at it and do whatever you want with it. But this is just a general disclosure. Executive summary. What I do with the executive summary. So this right here is the starting point for the executive summary. This information is not going to be included. So this is the starting point that I have for the executive summary, and this is a completed executive summary. What I do with all my executive summaries is I literally go into the business plan, and I copy and paste the information from the business plan into each one of the categories, whether it be for a company, a product, or service, competitive advantages, target market, financial highlights, and then funding request, and so on. So I will literally, for the product and services, I will go to the company description section, company summary. I'm going to take this information right here, Control C it, and I'm going to plug this into my executive summary right here, Control V it, and boom. The reason, and then what I'll do is I might reword this a little bit, I might cut it down a little bit. And the reason that I do that for each one of these segments right here for the competitive advantage, target market, financial highlights, and for the funding request is that business plans, you actually technically have two documents for your business plan. You're going to have the executive summary, which if somebody reads it, they're going to have a broad understanding of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, why you're going to do it, and what the results are going to be once you do it. So you're going to have the executive summary, which is going to be one document, and your business plan is going to be a more in-depth document. So they are in essence two different documents. So when you copy and paste information from your business plan to your executive summary, and then you minimize it, you are making sure your executive summary is aligned with your business plan. If you introduce something into your executive summary that is not in your business plan, you are not in alignment, and your reader is going to be wondering, where did you get that information? Why it's not expanded upon into your business plan? And thus why I do what I do for the executive summary. So in summary, for the executive summary, I do summarize your business plan literally in the executive summary. All right. So with that said, we shall move on. Also, you get charts and graphs with the traditional business plan. You're going to have your chart for your competitive advantages, and then we're going to have our chart right here for the revenues and net income for comparison purposes. Next section is going to be the company description. It starts right here, and this is how it's going to end. I do use this structure right here where I'm going to introduce the company name, what you're going to do. Maybe you're going to have a specialization, where you're going to be located. If you're a home office, I'll put city and state. What kind of legal structure you're going to have? Limited liability corporation. Is it going to be an LLP, limited liability partnership? Is it going to be a corporation? Is it going to be a partnership? Is it going to be sole proprietor? Whatever it's going to be, I'm going to state it and put it there. Also, I'm going to include the owners. Next, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about your company. I'm going to go ahead and summarize your company after we have a discussion for our initial meeting. I'm going to go ahead and extrapolate some information from you, what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it, and that is what I'm going to summarize right here. So if you're going to be buying a company, I'm going to talk about it here. If you're going to be starting a company, I'm going to give some highlights and some actions to what you're going to be doing. So your company summary is going to give the reader a good understanding of what you're going to be doing. Your product description is going to go into a little bit more depth as to what services or products you're going to be offering. Excuse me. For the product description or product services description, we're going to go ahead and briefly talk about what you're going to be doing. I'll do up to 4 different products or services. If you've got additional products or services you'll be offering, then I might go ahead and just include it in other services. But we don't want to just blow this out of the water and make it very disproportional for the product descriptions. Target market, I'm going to go ahead and introduce your target market and then briefly explain why we selected that target market. Competitive advantages, I'm just going to use this chart right here. I'm going to talk about the competitive advantages, just maybe state a couple of competitive advantages. Up here, under the company summary, I am going to drill down on one primary competitive advantage. I do state right here that as for an important competitive advantage, I'm going to then go ahead and really drill down 2 or 3 or 4 sentences as to what your competitive advantage is going to be in the marketplace, and then I'll further highlight it down here in the competitive advantage section. Location, going to talk about where you're going to be. Up here, this first paragraph is going to be talking about the physical location, how big it's going to be, how you're going to allocate the square footage. And then down here, I'm going to go external to your location, talk about some of the, the cross streets, main thoroughfares, put a map in here showing the location. If you're going to have an address, I'm going to use the address. The city and state, I'm going to use city and state. This is a smaller map for just because I did, just for example purposes, but usually it's going to be a bigger map where someone can actually see, the location. Hours of operation, pretty straightforward when you're open. Personnel, day 1, starting out. How many employees you're going to have and what are some of the positions, we'll highlight it there. And there is a little bug going around as of this video. It's called COVID-19. I'm sure a couple of people have heard of that. We do want to go ahead and address that, the elephant in the room. We need to talk about that and talk about how your organization is or will be mitigating or dealing with that little monster. Next will be your SWOT analysis. For the SWOT analysis, here's the starting point that I've got here, and then here is a customized SWOT analysis. There are some things I may leave here, for example, management experience. That's pretty straightforward. Most people have it that are starting a business, so I do want to state that as a strength. SWOT analysis is broken into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I will, like I said, there may be some or a lot of this information from my template I'm going to keep, but I may go ahead and customize this based on our conversations. Next is going to be the industry analysis. I do add a little bit more meat in the bone for the industry analysis as compared to my express plans. We might have a couple paragraphs. Right here, I'm going to be talking about the industry as a whole. Down here, I'm going to be including some statistics for the revenues, the growth, the profit margins, number of competitors, number of employees. This information is going to be taken from IBIS World. I do take it and summarize that information, put it in my own words, and include it right here. So that information is going to be taken from there and included there. I'm also going to go ahead and add a product or services segmentation, and then a chart of the product and service segmentation. And all it's going to be about page and a half for your industry analysis. Next is going to be the organizational management, organization and management. Right here, I'm going to talk about the ownership, the name of the company, where they're located, what you're doing, or just pretty much the name of the company, where you're located, who's the owner, and the legal structure. And then an organizational chart. I do use a visual organizational chart because you're going to be able to quickly see, the types of the different job positions that are going to be in the business. And you're also going to see the chain of command. Your cooks are going to be reporting to back of house manager, cashiers, front of house manager, and both front of house, back of house managers going to the GM, who is going to be going to the CEO. So really quickly, the reader is going to be able to look at your organizational structure and say, yes, this person knows what they're talking about. They're able to run a business or a restaurant or whatever you're going to be able to have. They understand the basic structure, and you're also going to be able to show if you've got any twists or turns or twerks in your organizational structure. You're going to be able to identify that here as well. Also, I'm going to have a resume. If you give me a resume, I will put a resume in here in a Word document as well. So if you give me a PDF, no, I'll send it back and say, no, I need it in a Word document. You give it to me in a Word document, I can include it. And next is going to be the sales and marketing. For the sales and marketing, let's be honest, most businesses, they do the traditional marketing. They're going to do word of mouth. They're going to be doing the signage. They're going to be doing social media, website. They might be doing mailers. They might be doing, who knows. But from what I've done over the last 11, 12 years is I've sat back and I've thought about all the different ways a business can go ahead and advertise or market. and I was able to come up with about 16 different ways, or 3 to 4 pages worth of ways that a business is going to go ahead and advertise. I went ahead and I've written templates for each one of the different ways that a company can go ahead and advertise, and I will use a template. So I'll use a structure. Let's say, for example, you're going to do word of mouth marketing. Well, I'll just go ahead and jump up here to the word of mouth marketing template that I've created. I will copy this, put it in here, and then I might go ahead and customize this a little bit to, to meet your needs, or to better align with your company, or you may just leave it as it is. It really just going to depend on the situation, but that's how I come up with a lot of my marketing and sales. I've already done a lot of the work up front, and then I just use that information later on. Funding request. This is a straight up template and a fill in the blank. And the reason it is because in the funding request, it needs to be short, it needs to be succinct, and you've got to cover a lot of information. You have to let the reader know, whether it be a lender or an investor, how much money that you're going to need, how much money you're going to be throwing at it. And then you're also going to want to say, if you're going to have debt or equity, what are the terms of the debt? Is it going to be 7 to 10 years? Is it going to be 15 to 20 years? What is the interest rate you're expecting? 5 to 7%, 7 to 15%. And then for an investor, they're going to want to know how they're going to be compensated. Are you going to be paying them dividends, and how often are you going to be paying them dividends? And then, where's the dividends coming from? Are you going to be paying it from the cash flow from the organization? Are you going to be taking the money out of your own 401k? Do you have another business that you're going to be funding to get this business off the ground? A lot of those questions need to be answered in the funding request. Thus, it needs to be short, sweet, to the point, and why I use a template and I literally fill in the blank, because I've identified all that information in this little paragraph right here. Excuse me. Also, with the funding request, we're going to have a startup cost. So I'm going to break down the startup cost into percentages, and then down here, we're going to have a startup cost where the first 2 lines are your equity investment, your loan if you're going to have one. Excuse me. And then how you're going to spend that money, and this total amount of money right here, $150,000, is going to align with the number that you're going to be borrowing. So this is all intertwined, where the startup costs are going to be in percentages of the startup cost down here, and the startup cost right here is going to show where you're getting your funding, then how you're spending the money, and then the total amount of money needed for startup is aligned with your top line. So there is a lot of weaves being woven in this funding request, but it does make sense. It is aligned, and it has been honed over years of optimization by myself. Next is going to be the financial projections. Here is, in my most humble of opinions, this is where my business plan is really set apart from your other traditional business plan writers. It doesn't matter who it is and where they are. My business plans, the most humble of opinions, again, are some of the best ones out there because of my financial projections and the way I structure. I am an adjunct finance professor. I write finance books. I design finance models for a living. Heck, I even, for fun, I analyze the top 50 companies in the U.S., public companies, and sell financial reports for them on a yearly basis just to keep my practice for financial projections. So I do like my numbers here. And so the way that my financial projections are set up is right here. I'm going to go ahead and, well, first and foremost, here is my little handy dandy financial model that I use. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to send you over a questionnaire for my traditional plan. I'm going to talk about, how you're going to generate your daily revenues. What are some of your revenue channels? So we're going to go ahead and identify the revenue channels. Talk about some of the variable costs. How many customers do you expect to be working with? The prices on average you're going to be charging. And from there, I'm going to be able to generate using some growth rates in my financial model. I'm going to customize it for your individual needs, and we're going to identify, what your monthly revenues are expected to be. We're going to grow those to the annual, and then we're going to provide next 5-year financial projections just based on these daily revenues right here. Next thing we're going to do is identify some of your labor. How much money do you want to get paid? And then how many employees you're going to have, what are their positions, and what are their rates of pay. Startup cost right here, we're also going to not only are we going to use your startup cost in the funding request section, but we're also going to use that for the balance sheet information as well. Next is going to be your fixed cost, and here's your little chart right here. Then your fixed cost, how much you're going to be paying for rent, electric, phone, internet, insurance, accounting, advertising, and so on and so forth. These are going to be your fixed costs. These are not adjustable. I do not add additional line items to this. Here's going to be your miscellaneous growth rates for your tax rate, your cost of capital, for your projected valuation. And then these are some of the growth rates we're going to be using on an annual basis to increase all the line items of the financial model. And then finally, right here is the loan information. What I do here is when we identify a loan amount here, this is tied into this loan amount here, and then we use the interest rate in the term to calculate the payments, and the payments are then tied into the financial model for your 24-month projections, as well as your income statement for the next 5 years and your balance sheet. So this is one heck of a model that I've designed, and then I am able to quickly and efficiently customize with your information to come up with the financial projections. So that is the financial model that we will just have a discussion with. We'll fill in that information. And once we're done, we're going to give some financial highlights. We'll pull the highlights out of the model. We'll put them right here. And then I'll go ahead and design a handy dandy little chart right here that's going to talk about your revenues, your expenses, and your net income. Also under here is going to be the financial assumptions. We're going to talk about some of the, what are some of our thoughts and ideas that we've incorporated into the financial model to come up with these numbers, and we're going to list those financial assumptions here. Once we're done with that, we're then going to break out our daily sales. We're going to show the reader what your initial daily or weekly or monthly sales are going to be. We're going to tell them what your initial monthly labor costs are going to be. We're then going to show them what your initial monthly fixed costs are going to be, broken into this chart, category right here. And then also put into a nice little pie chart as well. We're then going to identify what your growth rates are going to be for the annual basis, year 1 through year 5, and then for each line item. Once we're done with that, we're going to, voila, have our profit and loss pro forma profit and loss statements for the next 24 months, the way it's broken up, month 1 through month 3 for quarter 1, month 4 through month 6, quarter 2, month 7 through 9, quarter 3, and then month 10 through 12, quarter 4. And then we're going to have month 13 through 15, quarter 1, and then 16 to 18, quarter 2, and months 19 to 21, quarter 3, and then month 22 to 24, quarter 4. And then finally, we're going to have our pro forma income statement for the next 5 years. We're also going to have our balance sheet. In addition to the typical pro forma financial projections, we're also going to add a break-even analysis for the next 5 years and a nice little chart showing the break-even dollar amounts needed for the next 5 years. And then we're going to have a valuation, projected evaluation. Please understand this is not a value for your organization. This is just using some capital budgeting techniques to come up with the net present value of your company. And all that means is just based on your cash flows, back out or add back in your depreciation, and use a discount rate based on pretty much 20%. I mean, coming up with a discount rate for an organization or weighted average cost of capital with the weightages of debt and equity, that's a little over the top in my most humble of opinions. So I just use a standard discount rate of 20%, but I'll discount the cash flows, and what we'll do is we'll get a value of the expected cash flows based on that estimate. For this particular example, 2.7 million with an investment of 700,000, internal rate of return of 64%, which is not too shabby. But so the valuation is not not something you can retail value, but it's going to give you an idea of what the value of your cash flows are going to be. Next is going to be your financial ratios. I put some financial ratios in here just to let the reader know that we have calculated some of the financial ratios, and if there's if they got a sweet spot for financial ratios, then they might be able to find one in here. And again, it's going to give them an idea of how the debt's going to grow, what the interest coverage is. Our bankers like our interest coverage, and then also return on equity. How much money can the investors expect on an annual basis. For this example right here, starts at 42% return on equity, declines to 19%. And the reason that is because I don't show any additional debt for the organization. So we are continually to use equity for it to grow. So inevitably you are going to have a lower return on equity, but I'll get into that in one of my future videos. All right, and then finally, we're going to have a resume. If you give me a resume, I can put a resume in here, and it'll be off to the races. All right, so hopefully this was a little bit longer than I anticipated, and I apologize, but hopefully it's going to give you a good idea of what you can expect for the traditional business plan if you go ahead and purchase it from my organization. And if you would like to purchase this, all you have to do is zip on over to my website, qualitybusinessplan.com/business plan prices, and we do have a number 3 there. You do need that. But if you just Google Quality Business Plan, you'll be able to get over there really quick. And yeah, if you like the video, like what you see, you like what you hear, then pick it up. Hit me up for a deposit. Download my questionnaire for the traditional plan. Schedule an appointment with me, and let's get you all taken care of. And finally, I hope you all are going to have a fantastic day. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. And as always, thanks for listening.